Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to stand in front of a wall? A wall that stretched higher than your reach, longer than your sight. A wall that divided lives, families, and a city's very soul? Tonight, let us step softly back into the 20th century, to a moment when concrete and barbed wire seemed to seal the world in two, and then to the night when those barriers began to crumble. Tonight, we will journey through the story of the Berlin Wall, its rise, its long shadow, and its fall, which came like the quiet breaking of a spell. Close your eyes. Let the rhythm of history guide you gently, sentence by sentence, as we drift through the divided world and its healing. The Second World War had left Europe in ruins. Cities were broken, homes were shattered, and millions were displaced. Yet, out of that destruction came a new order, shaped not by unity, but by rivalry. The United States and the Soviet Union, once uneasy allies, emerged as the two great powers. Their visions for the future were not the same. One spoke of democracy and open markets, the other of socialism and control. Between them, a line was drawn, invisible at first, but soon to be made very real. Germany was at the heart of this line. Once a proud empire, then a dictatorship under Hitler, it was now a broken land carved into zones. The Americans, the British, and the French governed the western part. The Soviets controlled the east. Berlin, though it lay deep inside the Soviet zone, was also split among the four powers. And so, within a single city, two worlds began to take shape. At first, there was movement. People crossed the invisible border daily. Workers lived in the east, but found better wages in the west. Families visited across lines. The city seemed fragile, but still connected. Yet beneath the surface, tension grew. In 1948, the first great crisis arrived. The Soviets, seeking to push the West out of Berlin, cut off all road and rail links into the western sectors. The city faced starvation, but in response, western planes filled the skies. Day and night, for nearly a year, they delivered food, fuel, and supplies in what came to be called the Berlin Airlift. When the blockade finally ended in 1949, it was clear Berlin would remain divided. And soon, Germany itself would be split. In May 1949, the Western zones became the Federal Republic of Germany, a democracy aligned with the West. In October, the Soviets proclaimed the German Democratic Republic in the East, a socialist state aligned with Moscow. Two Germanys, two systems, two futures. Berlin, though divided, remained a porous gateway. And from the very start, East Germans looked westward. The promise of freedom, of opportunity, of choice was too strong to ignore. In the years that followed, millions left. Doctors, teachers, engineers, and farmers. By 1961, more than 2.7 million had fled. Each departure was a wound for the East. The government of Walter Ulbricht, leader of East Germany, saw the country bleeding talent, hope, and legitimacy. Something had to be done. And so, in the stillness of an August night, the order was given. Soldiers and workers moved quickly, unrolling barbed wire, blocking streets, digging trenches. By dawn, on August 13, 1961, Berliners awoke to a new reality. Streets that had once been open were suddenly sealed. Train lines were cut. Families separated. Lovers stranded. The wall was not yet concrete, but its impact was immediate. Shock rippled through the city. Within days, the barbed wire was replaced by concrete blocks. Roads were torn apart. Buildings along the border were bricked up. Watchtowers appeared. Guard dogs were stationed. Soldiers patrolled with rifles. Slowly, over the months and years, the barrier hardened into a formidable system: 155 kilometers of walls, fences, floodlights, and killing zones, all encircling West Berlin. It became known simply as the Berlin Wall. Life changed. In the West, people continued their daily lives, always aware of the looming structure that reminded them of the Cold War's chill. In the East, restrictions grew tighter. Citizens were monitored by the Stasi, the secret police. Conversations were guarded. Travel was controlled. To approach the wall was forbidden. To attempt escape was dangerous. And yet, people tried. Some dug tunnels beneath. Others used forged documents to slip through. A few built hot air balloons to float over. There were daring car escapes with false compartments and hidden passengers. Some succeeded. Many failed. Over the years, at least 140 people were killed trying to cross. Their stories spread quietly, whispers of both tragedy and courage. The wall stood as more than concrete. It was a scar across Europe. It told the world, here lies the boundary between freedom and control, between West and East. It became the ultimate symbol of the Cold War. Leaders came and went. Crises erupted elsewhere: in Cuba, in Vietnam, in Prague, yet the wall remained unchanged. Presidents visited. In 1963, John F. Kennedy stood before it and declared, "Ich bin ein Berliner." In 1987, Ronald Reagan spoke the famous challenge, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." The words were bold, but the concrete did not move. Then came the 1980s. The Soviet Union was struggling. Its economy weakened. Its people restless. A new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, rose to power. He spoke of reform, of glasnost and perestroika, openness and restructuring. He sought to loosen the grip, to modernize, to ease the Cold War tensions. In Eastern Europe, change stirred. In Poland, the Solidarity movement pushed back against communist control. In Hungary, borders began to open. Across the region, the iron grip of the old system was weakening. In East Germany, the people watched. They gathered in churches, lighting candles, singing hymns. They marched in the streets of Leipzig and Dresden, calling for freedom. Week by week, their numbers grew. At first, the government tried to silence them, but the tide was too strong. The chants grew louder. "Wir sind das Volk," we are the people. By the autumn of 1989, the pressure was overwhelming. The East German leadership faltered. Old leaders resigned. New ones promised change, but gave confusion instead. On the evening of November 9, 1989, a press conference was held. An official, unprepared, stumbled over questions about new travel regulations. He announced, almost casually, that East Germans could cross the border freely. When asked when, he replied immediately. The news spread like fire. Crowds rushed to the checkpoints. At first, the guards resisted. They had no orders to let people through. But the crowd grew, pressing forward, chanting, demanding. At last, overwhelmed, the barriers opened. And then history shifted. East Berliners poured through, greeted by cheers from the West. Strangers embraced. Families reunited. People climbed the wall, danced upon it, hammered pieces away. The night sky glowed with lights, with tears, with laughter. The wall, so long a symbol of division, was crumbling before the eyes of the world. The images traveled everywhere. A young man with a hammer chipping away. Children sitting atop the wall. Soldiers standing by, no longer shooting, but watching. The joy was unmistakable. The Cold War was not yet finished, but the spell of division was broken. In the months that followed, borders opened across Eastern Europe. Governments fell. The Soviet Union itself would dissolve within 2 years. Germany, after decades of separation, moved swiftly toward unity. On October 3, 1990, less than a year after the wall's fall, Germany was officially reunified. The Berlin Wall had stood for 28 years. It fell in a single night. Its meaning is layered. For those who lived in its shadow, it is a memory of pain, of separation, of loss, of fear. For those who saw it fall, it is a memory of hope, of joy, of freedom, of reunion. For the world, it is a reminder. Walls may rise, but they can also fall. And so, as we let the story settle, let us reflect gently. The Berlin Wall was built of stone, of steel, of watchtowers and fear. But it could not endure forever against the quiet, persistent strength of human hope. Division may seem permanent, yet it is never absolute. The human spirit longs for unity, for connection, for freedom. And when enough hearts beat together, even the strongest wall begins to tremble. So rest now with this memory of a wall that fell and a world that changed. The divided world drew closer that night. The Cold War began to thaw. And in the quiet of November 1989, we learned again that no barrier lasts forever. The wall was torn down. The people were free. And the night sky above Berlin whispered the timeless truth. Hope endures. Unity is possible. And even in the darkest divisions, light can break through.